Because what is evil? It's the inversion of love. So, and right now that's what we're living in here, from the sacrifices, from children being killed, like all that is done outside of love. So yes, we are living in an averted heaven or realm here because of that, just because of people are stepping out of love. But if everybody were to step back into love, that would totally flip, and this place would become heaven again.
Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers. John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another inspired conversation, a special one that's been a while in the making. We've had this guest on last year. It was a very big conversation, over 1.2 million viewers, and a lot of questions, more than 4,000 comments. So we thought we'd bring him back on to answer those questions and to bring a lot of clarity to the conversation. I'm talking about Darius J Wright, who is a speaker, a researcher who dives deep into the nature of consciousness, timelines, and the structure of reality. He's especially known for his work with out-of-body experiences and helps others learn how to access these expanded states themselves. Drawing from ancient texts, personal experience, and modern theory, Darius explores powerful topics like soul contracts, reincarnation, and the awakening, inviting people to see life through a much wider lens. Please welcome with me, Darius J Wright. It's great to have you back, brother.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I'm happy to be here again. So let's answer the questions that everybody has, see where that goes.
Oh, yeah, a ton of questions, Darius. I know you're tuning in from the future. You're in Australia, many hours ahead, and we're glad to have you during your downpours. You said it's a miracle you even have connection. So I take it as a good sign.
Yeah. No, we've been just like the rest of the this place. It's covered in rain all over. So yeah.
Yeah, we've had similar experiences here in the south of the United States. Um, Darius, there was a sort of an unusual response to our conversation. Like I said, over 1.2 million people watched it. A lot of excitement, a lot of questions, over 4,000 comments, which is a lot. And I think I read pretty much all of them and sort of worked out the themes and the most important ones. And if it's okay with you, I have a little list here, and I'd like to go through it with you and see if we can answer those questions for our viewers.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's no problem. Yep.
So, first, for those who haven't watched the interview, I encourage you to click the link in the description so you get a good overview of Darius's life, his experiences, and what he does. But in short, Darius, what are out of body experiences for those who are not quite familiar with that term?
Okay. So out of body experiences is just a controlled near death. You are shutting down the body, you're leaving the body, your soul's leaving the body, and you are accessing back to your true state. You're the divinity, you're home again. So when people think of an out of body, try to tear down all of what you've heard elsewhere. When you die, you go back to what's considered home. So when you come out of your body, you can access that state again. You could return to that state. You could see dead relatives. You could see the true state of who we actually are. And that's why I think it's done so well, because people, once you hear something spoken, once you hear a truth spoken, it sparks the flame within you again. That's so many are dim at the moment. Yeah. Because they forget that their true state was never lost. And when that's reminded again, then that's where you get the greatest awakening, the greatest truth, stepping out of fear, the greatest freedom, because that's where freedom is, the other side. The freedom, you'll never capture true freedom here. And people are searching for it here. They're searching for the elixir of life here, but it's not here, it's within you. And that's what the out of body, that's what leaving your body is, essentially. That's what a near death is.
When people think of near death experiences, they usually think of sort of involuntary experiences, like they have an accident or something happens. But you've been initiating out of body experiences consciously, willfully, for quite some time. How many years have you been doing this and exploring?
So all the way since a child, I was doing it to 16, and basically learning how to get control over the state is for many years, over a decade now, if not longer, of actual controlled states. Yeah.
So, can you estimate how many out of body journeys you've been on or guided, even
Mhm.
with others?
Um, I always say jokingly hundreds of thousands of times because I honestly don't have a record. I don't know. Eh, Most of the time, if I'm not intentionally doing it, they still happen all the time, anyways.
Hmm.
So, uh, to give you an example, just and I really wish I had to someone outside of personal people in my life to validate what I'm going to tell you, because unless you're here, you don't really see it. But there's been many times during just the past month, I'm just coming out of my body and I'm viewing potential future events just within my field, and they play out pretty much verbatim. And I have someone with me where I've watched in the out of body state something play out. I'm like, oh, this is going to play out. This is going to happen. And in disbelief, still, like people think that I still don't get shocked, but still in disbelief. When that event occurred exactly how I saw, I was like, holy shit! It's like you're a child again. Like you're seeing, you know. So many times I've been taken out of the construct. This what people call creation, the universe. Um, Many times, seeing things many times, seeing the heavens. So, yeah, I wish I could give you a number, but I don't have one.
I sort of knew that there wasn't a precise number. Nobody logs those things, but I
Yeah.
think you sort of gave a more clarity, because people think of these things as sort of always big events, long preparation, initiation, but anything that you do, for a long period of time, you can start to do it very quickly or be in that state very quickly. So that sort of clarified it. I want to start with the questions here with one of the most commonly asked, and it was answered before, but I don't think, or I think we can get more clarity on this. When we talk about this construct, you just used this word. For many people, the perception is, most people, I would say, Earth is a physical realm. We live here, and then depending on whether we do good or not good, we go to a place called heaven or a place called hell. That's sort of a very commonly held belief, subconscious or conscious. But in recent years, the construct simulation matrix theory has really gained a lot of traction. And so I'm asking very clearly, in your perception and your experience, is Earth, the way that we perceive it today, a natural realm that was created by the prime creator, the source of all creation? Is it a captured realm that is sort of controlled by an inverted form of consciousness, or is it a combination? Is it what is it in your perception?
Okay. So everything, every single creation here, and from the other side, from the macro to the, you know, both ways, is all created by source. Yeah. Now, your consciousness, and let's just use God, has no limitation on that which it can do. And if you were to say that God or source cannot make these things, then you put a limitation on the very creator of all things. And you cannot have ultimate expression of freedom with a limitation. So even the most evil things still had a creation point from the source.
What you're saying all originates from the same source, like everything. But what I'm saying is, in the process of time or history, whatever you want to call it, were there fragments of that source that distanced themselves so far from the creation energy and consciousness that they actually became disruptive, destructive, deceptive, and if you want to call it an archontic consciousness using Gnostic terms, beings that create a deception for other beings and keep them in a reincarnation loop or cycle in a deceptive way. Have you ever experienced or seen this concept, or is this a false concept?
Okay. So to just be clear, a being taking itself away further and further from source, further and further from its original divinity. Is that possible? Yes and no, because even the further away you go, you're still connected, regardless. The most evilest, wicked things can be retrieved from love. And to say otherwise is to say that love is not the ultimate force and the most unstoppable force in all creation. And then to say that love is not that, then you would say that evil is that. Evil is the most powerful force in all creation. So it's either evil is the most powerful force in creation or love is. And if evil is, then we have it backwards, but it's not evil. So even evil itself, they distance themselves. What is evil? It's the loss of love. That's all
Mhm.
it is. And
I would
all
agree. Yeah.
those beings, yeah, all those beings can be retrieved back to it. So when you have a creation like this, you also have the unexperienced. Those beings taking themselves out of love so far where they lose themselves temporarily. And yeah, that's where you get all the wicked things taking place here. But that doesn't mean that they cannot go back to, you see, into, yeah, okay.
No, no, no. I completely agree with everything that you said, and even if I didn't agree, it would still doesn't make it untrue because you're right. Absolutely. Excuse me. The question is, um, there are spiritual traditions and long-standing bodies of knowledge, including some of the more, dominant religions in the world that speak of this realm as the illusion, the Maya, right? That's sort of in spiritual terms. In more modern terms, since the advent of technology in our realm, and since we have gotten more understanding, we're thinking of the possibility of computer simulations, holographic simulations, something pretending or copying the real thing. A lot of people say they have an intuitive feeling this is not quite a prime creation the way that we experience it. You're saying, is that possible? Or you're saying, no, this is a human confusion?
So an illusion, yes, this is. So the only way that I could answer this question for you, Gene, is this. Everything in creation, no matter what it is, let's step out of this entire universe. And when you step out of that, some people may go, well, there's nothing. There's nothing outside of everything. But even nothing itself, when you think of nothing, you give it borders, boundaries, you give it structure. So even nothing cannot hide from you. The moment that you end up creating from the outside here, you do that through prisms of light. So a thought form is a prism of light. And this prism of light is a confinement for an experience. So any experience that we create is in form a prism confinement, and you could say a prison, but not necessarily a prison, because you are outside of all prisms of light itself. Do you see?
I
No,
think,
no, no
yeah.
matter no matter what it is, no matter what it is that we experience here, you are even outside of the very creation of it itself. Because if you are within it and of it, of that way, then you would be limited to just that. And therefore, you're limited. And you're an all creator being not, an all divinity being not. You see?
I've had
So,
enough personal experiences of that nothingness or that voidness, if you want to call it that, which is actually everything and nothing all at once. It just it is experienced in a formlessness that we don't know in this human perception, and that's why it's so hard to put it in words. But I know that the greater part of us dwells in that everythingness, and the
yeah,
smaller part of us is here having this experience. So I'm going to continue with this
I know.
question. Yeah, go
I know
ahead.
that's not a direct answer, but it sort of is a direct answer. But uh,
None of this,
uh,
the
but
truth is, Darius,
a
none
lot.
of what we
Yeah, good.
discuss here can be answered to full satisfaction in words. You can only point
Mm,
people to experiences and say, "Hey, here's what I've experienced," and you can only be an arrow pointing to a direction, and people can either go there or not. But I completely understand the limitation of words and our concepts for such big answers. Like,
yeah.
that's not lost on me.
Yeah. Because a lot of this is based in the questions that people are trying to get me to answer. A lot of them are based in fear, and we would both agree: is fear not the number one way to control an individual?
100%.
So the very fact that questions are based in fear already is already in that individual is already in a misconception of who they actually are. Because if they knew who they actually are, then there would be nothing to fear, because they would realize that not one thing could control or entrap you, the soul, unless you believe it to be so due to your fear. And when you realize that you are that powerful, then there is not one thing to be fearful of. You may be fearful of the body getting hurt, but I promise, like, a big statement, but I promise that there is not one thing that could ever destroy your soul. It is impossible. And when you understand that, that tears back all of fear based things and questions based on fear. Because I've once had that myself, but it's only when I've gotten rid of that fear entirely is when I broke free, truly broke free from everything. So,
I would say that any and all questions in our human experience come from a place of limitation and seeking to expand that in some way or transcend that. The worst part of limitation is fear itself. That's a very narrow space, and then we have broader structures. So I agree with you. And most questions, you're right, they're coming from a place of insecurity. And I think it's also sort of the quality of our time that so much is being questioned and so much falsehood is being exposed and so much truth is coming to light that oftentimes there's confusion. What is, and I think you part of your work, the great work as you call it, and part of our work is to remind people and help them see who they really are so they
yep.
can answer all those questions for themselves. But you're right,
Well,
and so a lot of these questions will come from that limited space. That's true.
yeah, because people are still see their flame is dim within themselves. You could say their spirit is dim within themselves. That's something that people could understand.
Hmm.
They are still underneath a false understanding that just because the body, their physical body is born, therefore their soul has to be born, or just because the physical body could experience imprisonment and death, that therefore the soul can, but it cannot, because you are outside of that even itself,
Hmm.
all of it. So, uh, and that is I would say the ultimate truth, really. You know.
Probably we could say thank you, Darius. Thank you for this conversation. You've just shared the ultimate truth. But I still have a ton of questions
But
here that I think people will still want to answer to make that journey themselves. One of them is, and you just
but
mentioned
I
death.
just want to stop you real quick. I just want to stop you because it's not just I don't want to be viewed as that way. because everybody comes to that, but it's just sometimes they need to be reminded of it. Yeah. Okay.
Of course, and we all walk these paths multiple times in layers. One of the questions, Darius, and you just mentioned death, physical death, because ultimately death does not exist, but the death of the physical body, the end of the physical body. A lot of traditions, Native American traditions and other indigenous traditions, warn people of this light tunnel or this false light as being a trap, as being something deceptive. Why are they warning them, and is there any truth to that?
I've never experienced that myself
Mhm.
personally. So the closer you get to the source of things, the bigger the shadow is going to become. So the closer you get to the light of things, the bigger the shadow is going to become. That's just revealing truth.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't even fear the tunnel of light itself. Yeah, because then again, the moment you leave your body, nothing can touch you. So if you fear light to touch you, that tunnel to touch you, then therefore you will be temporarily touched and create a temporary imprisonment for yourself. But I'm going to say no to that because I haven't directly experienced it, and based off everything that I've accessed, there's there's never been that.
Okay.
So yeah.
There are a number of questions specifically to out of body experiences. I know that is something that you teach. You
Could
show
I
people
say
how to.
this as well?
Sure,
A,
anything.
a lot of just like a lot of the Native American that section, just like religion, a lot of information has been infiltrated even within their community to
Yes.
implant fear constantly. So I'll leave it there.
No,
Yeah.
and there are many reasons why what we get from that indigenous space is incomplete and tainted. And we could go. There's a whole conversation as to why, but it's definitely the case. It's safe to say that we currently, in the form of normal learning, don't have access to that information, and there's a reason for that. We're not meant to have it, but I agree. So when it comes to learning out of body experiences, initiating them and having them, many people have asked whether, if you don't do it correctly, or if you um, accidentally get into it, if there's any danger, if there's beings out there that could follow you back, or if there's any protection that is needed.
So is there beings out there that it could be perceived as dark? Yes. And before, a lot of those things were subconscious things that I had, beliefs, fear projected into my space. And now, instead of in the past, I used to protect myself, try to do this, and I was constantly fighting myself. It wasn't until I realized that nothing could touch me, then they just literally nothing was able to. So, trying to find the best way to articulate this for the person, because I've already stated it already. When you leave the body, there's nothing to fear, nothing to fear at all. You
Unless you believe there's something to fear.
Yes, pretty much. And the very word is, when I leave my body, should I protect myself? You, you're already weakening yourself by saying that. It would, for instance, let's go to a religious, an all powerful God. Let's just say one singular Godhead, what people
Mhm.
believe him to be so as. Do you feel that that individual would be fearing things? Because the
No,
moment he stepped into fear, he would be powerful not. But
indeed.
that all powerful God is you and every single one of us. So when you say that, should I protect this out of my body? You've already weakened yourself to The very protection that the very thing you're trying to protect yourself from.
Like I said, I think many of these questions come from um, human exploration, and human exploration mainly happens on a mental level. It's sort of entertaining concepts, ideas, and when the spirit level isn't very active in that process, then scenarios play out, and our human imagination plays out those scenarios. When the human spirit comes in, we can look at the truth and realize, like you say, there can be nothing to fear. We are eternal. We always have been. What could be to fear? I get that. So I think
Well,
a conversation like
even
this is a journey.
yeah,
It's a journey
even the
back.
double yeah, yeah, even to double down on that too. Why is it that when people die near death experience and they are very religious and they call out to Jesus because something is harming them, then all of a sudden that being that was harming them disappears. No evil entity could exist in that name because they put their belief so much in an individual that it has no choice but to leave their space because they believe that much with no doubt in their mind because that's how powerful they are. You see?
So in other words, it's almost like a spiritual placebo. It's like you have really created this, but you've created it through your belief in an outside entity, and you say, "Oh, Jesus saved me," but really you're saying you just lost your fear, and in that moment,
Yeah, through him you lost fear. Because you lost fear, nothing was able to touch you. It's the same reason why if people believe that something's going to heal them, and it's a placebo effect, a saltwater pill. If they believe it enough, strongly, then it will heal them. So the same thing is true. That same concept is true out of your body too. And that's very important because you will spend a lot of your time battling your subconscious fear-based constructs, and until you face them head on and become fearless is only when you'll break free into your full divinity, your full light again.
is there a difference between out of body experiences, dreams, and remote viewing, or is that all the same concept in different names?
They're all those are three. They're three same thing, but all dependent on consciousness. So when you're dreaming, you're typically accessing a dimensional space or potential time. Typically, is how it goes. Sometimes you get access even more of that. You're actually outside doing things. But because your consciousness isn't fully there, you just phase in and out of awareness. I'm aware here, and then you phase out. But you could bring yourself 100% conscious in a dream. Remote viewing, I wouldn't necessarily say it's not an out of body like that because remote viewers don't they're not physically like they're not touching their soul as a physical thing or touching things and it feels very physical to them. They're more of just viewing scenes of events. It's almost like viewing time, almost like you're just viewing things. Can you still project and get accurate information from remote viewing? Yes, because that's your ability to project your consciousness somewhere. But it's different from actually physically leaving the body. Yeah, because comparing remote viewing would be trying to compare it to near death, and you could see where could remote viewers target certain areas and aspects. Sure, yeah, but does that make it clear for
It
you?
it makes it clear for me.
Okay.
I I think these are different forms of traveling and exploring, but ultimately, um, maybe similar experiences. Uh, I've
Well, I mean,
I
I yeah, go ahead, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I think many people have remote viewed without knowing that they've done it. When they're in
Hmm.
a very relaxed state, they've seen things or traveled to places not realizing it's not their imagination. They've actually
Hmm.
projected their consciousness somewhere else.
Yeah, to see a family member or sense. Yeah, yeah, that's remote viewing, and people, it's actually easier to do remote viewing than it is in out of body. You know,
Mhm.
um, yeah.
So, um, I I don't think that from the answers given so far from our discussion that we have perfect clarity on the true nature of this reality, other than knowing everything originated from one source. I'll leave it at that because I don't want to sort of, beat a dead horse. What I will say, because these have been sort of the biggest questions: is this realm a copy, an inversion, a hijack simulation? Um, I would encourage people to delve into those travelings, and see for themselves what they can see. I think that's always the best discernment.
Well, you could say here, yes, the evil has been ruling the more dominion over this place than anything else. So, can you call that an inversion? Absolutely, because what is evil? It's the inversion of love. So, and right now, that's what we're living in here, from the sacrifices, from children being killed, like all that is done outside of love. So, yes, we are living in a verted heaven or realm here because of that, just because of people are stepping out of love. But if everybody were to step back into love, that would totally flip, and this place would become heaven again. The bodies would just miraculously start to, it would be miracles happening all the time. The bodies would heal themselves. We would be living to biblical ages. The soul would be 100% fused with the physical body, that the soul's will had even dominion over the body. If it, because love is the highest state of frequency, highest state that we could get to. Authenticity as well. Authenticity and love are the highest states. When you are vibrating at that state within your cells go back to its purity again. Yeah, it's the reason why when you listen to music, you listen to a certain state of music, instantly you change. Your emotions change, everything changes. But if you're
Absolutely.
doing that from within yourself, you know, so yeah, I wouldn't say it's not an inversion. It is. Right now we are living in an inverted realm. Yeah.
I think I understand your caution better now, and it's sort of is maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong. You're seeing the things that we talk about here, but you don't want to solidify them as a reality or truth by confirming them. You're saying, yes, that is something that is playing out, but it can only play out because we believe it to be true. If we would pull back that belief that deception and lies and copies and inversions are truth, and realize who we really are at our highest
All
self,
comes
then
straight back
then
to you.
all of this goes away. Is that correct?
Well, when you realize who you really are, then you stop giving your power away to fear. And the moment you do that, then yes, you become the ultimate authority in the physical flesh. Even though the physical flesh could still be harmed, but you still walk in the authority of being in your divinity again, fearless, and you become an uncontrollable soul. The moment this is why when you being poor is the greatest gift, and also the greatest, you know.
I've been there, my friend. I've been
Yeah,
there completely. I know what you mean.
yeah, because you don't care. You have nothing to attach yourself to, or something that someone could control you or take from you. And even in the poor state, even in that state, you become an uncontrollable soul because you have nothing to lose and you have nothing to fear anymore.
It
Do you see?
actually, some of my greatest sort of revelations, if you will, or light bulb moments and moments of unimaginable joy came in times where I literally had nothing to my name, not a roof over my head, nothing. So, and that is
Same,
where you
same
make
thing.
that choice. You either step into full co-creation, which knows no limits, or you surrender to the false belief of lack, which
Mm.
might look like it in the moment, but it's not really real. It's just a another deception, if you will, that we
Yeah.
could ever be disconnected from the abundance of life.
Yeah, and I want to say this also for people too, because some people may say, "Oh, how could you say that to poor whatever?" Um, for 2 years, there was a thing. I wanted to test something for myself. I wanted to see how far could I actually stretch my will, and I didn't care in what form it came in. Just how far could I stretch my will in terms of walking in love. So I would say at a young age, I won't necessarily give the age, but at a young age, I decided to take $2,500 out of my bank account, which was all I had. Took it out in cash. Had a just a backpack, and I decided to take the leap of faith and travel the world. And that's it. I had no form of income. I had no form of supporting myself at all. Nothing. I was 100% poor. 2 years, 2 years in that process, I was able to refine my abilities, my gifts, my talents, because nothing was controlling me. I had no fear of losing anything. And when fear was out of the way, I had my ultimate, you could say, awakening of gifts.
Mhm.
After the end of those 2 years, I had $3 left. How I was able to manage all that?
You went three.
Yeah,
You went 2 years on
2005,
$2,497.
pretty much. Yeah. So, but the story of this too is because the thing is, I decided that this is what I'm going to do. That took me across from New York to LA, and I wasn't necessarily paying for everything, but it was just how things lined up,
Mhm.
how things flowed together. Well, from New York to LA, from LA, traveled with a group of people for all the way back to New York, doing the whole coastline from Florida. Then we went to Morocco. Then from Morocco, went to Norway. Then from Norway, went to uh, uh, Germany, Spain, France, Portugal, back down to Morocco, shot into Australia, Australia, New Zealand, Bali, back to New York, back to Australia, back to New York, and then that's where it ended. That's where I had $3 left in 2 years. You see,
That's quite the journey for $2,500.
yeah, but it wasn't done with
I know.
I wasn't. You know what I'm saying? But the point of that is that when I say being when you're in that state, it's also your greatest is where your greatest potential is just due to the lack of control and things that could be taken from you.
In my and I had a similar in other ways, but similar experiences. I will say that I wish that people could experience both these things, and I would say start with the experience of having no monetary abundance or very little, and throwing yourself into true flow of life and just seeing how incredibly that current can carry you, and how much synchronistic experiences you can have. And then the other thing is, I would wish that people could all experience having a lot of money to see that that isn't the answer to most of their questions. It makes life in this realm easier. Don't get me wrong. Like I prefer having access to that abundance than not having it. But knowing that it isn't the ultimate source of anything, it's just a means to an end in our realm. And unless you have these experiences, it's very hard to see those truths. You have to have the experience.
Mm. It's false security. People,
Yeah,
yeah,
but the truth is, Darius, you're not gonna tell me you don't like having a few dollars in your pocket, knowing that if you want to purchase something or go somewhere, that's the easiest way to do it. But you've already
Mhm.
had the experience of not having it, so you already know that that's not the real source of abundance.
No, no, no. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So there were a lot of questions around our spiritual sovereignty, our true authority, even how DNA activation plays into all of this. In other words, do you feel that through your experiences and your expanded consciousness and your access to greater truth, that you have also physically changed or were able to activate parts of your DNA that weren't active before?
Yes. Yeah. Um, just certain abilities have been even off the charts for me. Um, I always say intuitive stuff, but just won't go into much detail. But for instance, there was a game that I was playing about a month ago with somebody, and this is to pick up the energy field of somebody. So I was blindfolded, had earplugs in, so I couldn't hear anything. And I was in the same chair that I'm in now, so it turns. You see, so I'm blindfolded, and I have a stick, and I'm just turning myself, turning myself, turning myself, to where I have no concept of where I am. And then I say, okay, start moving to the individual, start moving around the house. And then when I say stop, stop moving, and I say stop, and the individual stops moving. I keep on spinning, I keep on spinning. And I was able to see, feel, not physically see, but see the energy. And I was like, that's a dark space over there. And I was pointing to my computer screen that was shut off. I usually have a projector there because I don't have a TV, but I just have a projector screen. And I started turning. And I said, it seems light over there. And then I was pointing to my white screen. And then as I'm turning, as I'm turning, as I'm turning, I feel the energy that I'm looking for, the individual. And it was a lighter feeling, just the energy. And I said, there, took them off right there. In multiple times. So and you could say, oh, well, that's coincidence. But when you keep on doing it repetitively, like that's one thing. Intuition off the charts too. The ability to access time has been off the charts. Like quite literally, I'm seeing things play out verbatim. That's how they play out. They could be slightly off, but verbatim is how they're playing. They play out. So I'm getting heads up as well because I'm tuning into more of the light spectrum of what is that which people are cut off from because they're unaware of it. We are missing 99% of the light spectrum, and we're only viewing 0 point something percent of it. And all that information is here once you learn how to tap into it. And once you leave the body, you see these things physically, but then you could bring them back within you to start awakening things here, sensing things here, doing things here. Yeah. Right.
So I think that a lot of people falsely call that enlightenment or supernatural, but isn't that really what every true human would be capable of? And it's
Everybody's
sort of
capable.
it's a dormant, in most people, a dormant ability that was neglected, forgotten, poisoned even through all the factors.
Yeah. So right now, a lot of individuals. So you take a look at all of the things that they've done through food, through chemtrails, through heavy metals, through the body. Like the amount of things that they've done, the simple fact that we live to 10 years old is already a miracle.
I
But
agree.
yet, here you are.
Mhm.
Here you are still searching for truth. You still have that within you. You still feel it.
Which is another way of showing you just how powerful you are, because
Yeah.
you should be dead 10 times over. And it must be very frustrating to those, evil, if you will, consciousness beings who do that. But I always say this: if you want to know how powerful you are, just look in the mirror and you're still here and you're still searching and you're still questing and you're still expanding in light of all of this madness.
Yeah.
I think that's proof. The proof's in the pudding.
Yeah. And all it takes is just switching that back on, that light back on. Because what you said and what I said, the simple fact that you're still here and you're searching for the truth of things shows you that they can't touch you. Because if they were able to, you would cease to exist by now. They can't actually touch it. The only thing they could do is make it foggy.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment you see that even that can't touch you, then it dissipates.
So it's a mirage, and that's all they can do, show you a mirage, and you can either believe it or not. And if you don't believe it,
Well, I also want to clarify. Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying they chop off your arm. Your arm's gonna grow back.
mhm.
Yeah, that's not necessarily what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is when you see and understand yourself, they could do anything they possibly want to the physical body. The soul's untouchable. And in that state, then you could walk and you could go against all of these things in this place, but you're doing it with full consciousness and awareness of who you are. You understand? Yeah.
So
And that's the power.
you can only put limitations on your soul through your free will. Like the proverbial deal with the darkness is a deal. You consciously say yes. You consciously give into something coming probably from a place of lack, but it can't be forced on you.
It could be forced on the physical body in terms of an evil thing could be done to me.
But not on a soul, right? It can't be forced on a soul.
It can't. A soul that understands who it is becomes untouchable. A soul that is not in the full awareness of who it is can be touched in that way, but not touched in the way of ceasing to exist or death.
Yeah. Um I want to get a little bit into uh the current. You talked about the poisons, you talked about chemtrails and all that, which there's so many to talk about these influences, but there is a big one that is fairly new in our perception, fairly new, or that we know of, which is AI and the explosion of that. How do you see um, AI in connection to consciousness and soul, understanding of who the soul truly is? Do you see it as another tool to try to distract us from that, to try to sort of deceive us into a false belief, or do you actually might even see it as something positive?
I think the more technology now, all right, this is another double-edged sword because right now we have the technology here right now
The
for
irony is not
every
lost on both
individual.
of us,
Yeah,
Darius.
yeah,
Yeah.
where we could be completely 100% free from all labor, work, like 100%.
Mhm.
Like the technology that we have, and also the stuff that has been suppressed, we should be living 100% free from the free energy, everything. But when it comes to like this dependency on what people are using AI for, which is to the lack of this, then that
Mhm.
becomes an issue because now you are even dimming your light further down in making the dormant abilities that you have even more dormant. Because all like you looked at Project Looking Glass. I saw that you've interviewed somebody with that. That's potential time events.
Mhm.
But you don't need technology to access time events.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This has been a great point of frustration for me for many years, because even what you just said is it's something that is true in a relative way, that technology could do all the labor that we don't need to do, want to do. But in reality, we don't need this lifestyle that has all these things and products and artificial stuff. If we were to return to here, there's a natural cycle of things that's already designed to work perfectly, without artificial interference. So the question is, and I'm willing to ask it to challenge myself, is this technology that's on the horizon potentially helping us see that again? I currently don't think that, to be honest. I think it's more in the way, but I'm willing to entertain different perspectives.
Okay, so well, it's yes and no. I would say okay. So let's say, for instance, if they had technology to heal the body through frequency and sound, pulsations of sound and light through the body, and it was a certain thing that you laid on, and that's what it did, and it started to heal the cells. Well, then,
Something like a med bed. You're talking about this concept of
yeah,
med
yeah, the
bed.
concept of med beds and stuff.
Hmm.
Now, depending on how much the individual walks away from their soul or their home, the source, the true state, they will become 100% dependent on that, and it's a 100% a distraction, because there's already been healings that taken place like that due to a split personality. There's been many studies on this. Split personalities. One person, that same person is in another personality, has cancer, flips over to another one, does not. And it's an instant healing. So it should, may not, but it should give people the opportunity to realize, well, if a piece of metal could do this, and sound waves and frequencies, are you not frequency within yourself and sound waves and light within you? Is the bones not the same strength as steel, metal? Do we not have iron within us? So if we rely on all these things outside of us, they can be achieved from within us if the soul will was fully present. 100%.
Do you see, and there are a few questions that pertain to what the future holds. Um, do you see potentially that more than ever before, because there's always splits in society, right? And some are more feelable than others, but do you feel that specifically AI and transhumanism on all these very potent streams, because they have so much energy in them, do you feel that that might cause a split in human society, where one section goes this artificial route and forgets more and more about who they really are and gives itself over
Yeah.
to that, and the other section goes to purity and to nature and the true expression of divinity?
I would say it's already happened.
Hmm.
Yeah. And you're just seeing the more it goes, the greater and greater that split becomes.
Hmm.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that those same people in that state cannot instantly switch like that and go right back. Yeah.
Mm. Do you think that it is from my studies and from studying
I'm not
specific?
talking about, so I just want to make this clear. I'm not talking about if someone changes their sex, like a male chops off his
Hmm. Yeah.
whatever. I'm not saying that gets reverted back, but I'm saying they're they're understanding their soul again. That's what I'm referring to.
Their
Okay.
spirit outlook and sort of their
Yes.
the perception of their truth. But would you say that in my studies I have found that the great one of the great intentions of the destructive forces behind technology is to create conditions in the human body that make it difficult or impossible to maintain that spirit connection? Would you say that beyond a certain point of manipulation, it is not impossible, but perhaps very, very difficult to reverse that?
Okay. So I'll go back to the greatest force, and I understand what you're saying. So don't take this as I don't understand where. what you're saying, and I don't understand this. But I'm going to go back to the greatest force of all things, which is pure, unfiltered, unconditional love. If that does not have the power to reach down to somebody in the greatest depths of suffering and disconnection, then it is not the ultimate force of all creation. It would be evil itself. So then that question comes to, what do you believe? Do you believe that evil has more power over love, or love has more power over it? And if love does, then no matter how far someone goes, love could always bring it back to its pure state. Because what is true love if it doesn't have the power to do so?
Okay, let me play this out in something that has already happened. And
Mhm.
what what my perception is that we are endowed with perfect free will.
Mhm.
So we can choose every day, every minute, every moment, how we perceive life, what we do, what we say yes to, what we say no to. For example, in the last years, billions of people have said yes to something. And
Yes.
for many of them, you know exactly what I mean. For
Yeah,
many
yeah,
of
yeah.
them, for many of
And
them, it has
we don't
become
necessarily need to go there if you don't, because it may get the thing flagged.
no, because it's not
Yeah.
about. I don't want to. I don't want to necessarily talk about ingredients, but what I have
Mhm.
noticed in many of those people, not all of them, but many, is that they have lost almost all empathy, almost all spark.
Yes.
It's a disconnection from life, so from spirit life. They're still
Mhm.
their biological body is still alive, but their spiritual flame is non-feelable. They made that choice, right? And
Yes.
potentially in subsequent years they will make similar choices that have even more impact. What I'm saying is I believe at some point you reach in this physical experience a point of no return where you can't make your way back because you're so far gone. You might have to exit or find another way. I might be wrong in that, but that's how I perceive it.
Okay. Well, so I'll say this. So yes, heavy metals do dim the light within you. So your soul, replace your soul with the sun. They spray chemtrails over the sun. It dims the light from the sun, nourishing your physical body and also everything here. The same thing with your soul. You put heavy metals there, it dims the light. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the light cannot be pushed past it if it has the will to do so. So people here can, they can live the entirety of their life and get further and further and further disconnected until they die. But even in their death, they will return back home. They will find themselves again. Even in that, even in the body dying, the soul will always find its way back home. And even here, they have the choice to do that as well. But I would say, what disappointment it is not to see that here. Because when they die, remember what I told you before, the greatest sin is a sin you cannot forgive yourself for. The greatest pain is also that as well. So when they die, they will end up creating their own temporarily hellish experience. But that doesn't mean hell captures them, because even love could capture them out of that itself, their deepest sorrow. So no matter where you spin it, no matter where you view it, love always wins. Here or there, it wins.
You know, all day today I was wearing a shirt that says "Love Wins." I
Yep.
just, I just felt like a fresh shirt before I came home. But just so we were on the same team here. But what I hear is that nothing can happen outside of your free will. So no force of love or divinity can will something for you. You, as an individual unit of consciousness, if you will, you have to want something and will it.
Yes. Yes. Yes, you do.
Uh,
And this is why I said before, you can never control and entrap a soul unless it believes it to be so. But so if a soul has a will like that, where they believe that to be so deeply, not even your will could influence them otherwise until they make the choice. But what you can do, it's like a tuning fork. When you stand in the purity of that love and truth, you're tuning here. And the closer you get, it has no choice but to slightly tune this, to wake it up. Hey, you're sleeping. Hey, wake up. And then they start to question over here where it's slowly starting. And then their will starts to wake up. And then they could see you. And when they see you, then you could say, come with me. It's no different. You had this in your life. Everybody has physically. So it can be done. So I refuse to give up on people because even in my out of body, I've seen things, I've seen beings. And instead of kicking them, I've seen evil beings without kicking them down. Instead, I reach out my hand to them because I realize the pain that they're in to even act that way to begin with. And who would I be to judge that and then shun that and put it deeper down into pain when I have the power to bring it up? And this is the greatest, sorry, this is the greatest thing that people do not want to look at because you may hear what I'm saying and you may think that I'm saying, oh, I'm totally oblivious of these things. I totally see it, but I also know the true force that could change it.
I think it helps when we realize that we have different perspectives when we are in our human perspective. Obviously, when somebody does something horrible, abuses children or kills them, or in your human perspective, the first thing that you do is that you remove that person from put them in a place where they're unable to hurt anyone else. That's the most natural thing. You first make sure that sort of anyone who is vulnerable is protected or innocent. Now, that's the human thing. There is a necessity for what we call justice. There is a necessity for a balancing. But when and I have a background in deep trauma healing, so I've had this, I've done this process many times. On the soul level, there truly is no judgment. When you are on that level, you don't feel judgment. You don't judge that other soul. You, for some reason, are completely capable of unconditional love, even for that soul that was in a body that committed atrocities,
Well,
which is
again, that
almost
goes in.
it's
Yeah.
almost not understandable from a human perspective. But when you are
But
solely in soul perspective, there's no limitation to that.
but it is understandable in human perspective. You just need context to it. Your father, you have a son.
Yes.
I don't know if you ever told me that before, but you have a son. That son does everything in this place that is evil. You do you stop loving your son?
I don't know that I would be capable of stopping loving him.
Well, that's the same thing on the other side. Replace all the souls with someone's child. And no matter what they do, they will always be loved. That is the true power of unconditional love. And that's what I was saying to you before. No matter what is done, if love cannot bring them back, then it is an all powerful force not. And therefore, we are all wrong and we have no hope. and therefore there is nothing to live for because evil wins. And
And
that is not true. It's not
I,
a belief.
I
It is
refuse
just
to believe
not
that.
true. Exactly. You see?
I have always refused. You and I wouldn't be sitting here. You and I wouldn't be doing what we're doing in our fields if we didn't 100% know that, not just believe it. That doesn't mean there aren't challenges. That doesn't mean we're not going through things and we don't have personal challenges. But there's always something greater to return to and to remember, and a perspective that never changes, which
Yeah.
that's what the
But
truth is.
yeah, but you would still always protect out of love those that are the most vulnerable.
Of course.
You would always do that. So that's, I mean, yeah,
There
okay.
really is no
All right.
contradiction. You protection happens on the physical level because of all the distortions, and then on the soul level, literally forgiveness happens and love happens, and that's just the way it is. I mean, it sounds like a contradiction, but it really isn't. And I'm sort of glad that this came up. Um, there, it's sort of to turn the page a little bit here, Darius. When you are in the public arena and when you reach millions of people like you do, and you go on podcasts and many people watch it, there's bound to be controversy. And I think some of it is just created. That's how these platforms work. They thrive on bickering and all that. But then there are sort of also people who very specifically target and say things about you. People that have a bigger audience, and they would say something like, "You are a disinformation agent. You work for the intelligence community. You are not telling the truth." How do you respond to such? Um, I don't want to say accusations, but to such comments.
As there, when when you look at my message, uh, some people desire to put people in a state of needing or fear. But all through my message, have I not? My message at the core has been to take fear away, to take pain away, to bring people back to their true state in love. And if that's evil, then I might as well just stop what I'm doing, because my message is to strip those away so people could be free. And if I'm such a disinfo agent, if I'm working with the intelligent agencies, then wouldn't I be a whistleblower trying to bring truth to people? Because even in the greatest truth, people don't want to see it. But there's not one thing that I have said that does not empower an individual. And if that's considered evil, then people are truly lost.
This is to me the measure of the authenticity of someone is whether what they do and what they say leads to people empowering themselves, whether the information that they share, even if it's not pleasant at all times, but if it leads to the individual empowering themselves and realizing that they are all that they were waiting for, then that person is always serving creation. That's how I see it. If people start calling for external solutions, and you need this and you need to vote for this party or this person, or then I'm weary. But so I appreciate your candid and your very powerful answer. Thank you for that. And I share your perspective on that completely. um in your on your website, for example, and you've said this before, to close this particular chapter, you call your work part of the great work, which is a very common phrase in many spiritual traditions, has been around, whether that's alchemy or it's been around, but it is also used by an organization that doesn't get a good rep, which is the Freemasons, and that's a very controversial subject. Do you have any comments on that? Because those were I mean, many comments on that. Darius says the great work. That's what the Freemasons do. He's part of the Freemasons. Do you want to comment on that at all?
So I could only tell you what I was told on the other side is that this is considered the great work, which is waking people up to themselves, the other side. Because once they wake up to that, they wake up to everything. So just because it's been used doesn't necessarily invalidate that which I'm sharing to people. Yeah. I'll just I'm not part of the Freemasons, although I've targeted places and seen things within the Vatican, and that I'm not part of it. Yeah, and I would go back to, if people believe that I am, then their system is designed to put you in a state of beneath something, still in slavery and control of. And what I'm saying is to take you out of all of forms of enslavement, of imprison. So I, I, I feel the people that are saying this, because they also hear what I'm saying. They could sense the truth in it. Yet they feel, well, how could you know these things if you aren't from this, or to lead me down another path? But I'm not trying to lead either. That's the thing. I'm not trying to lead people and say, follow me, I am whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to say, listen, this is what is. This is how you could do it. This is how you can access it. And even if you don't even apply it, then the words that I've used still are tools to see it. And from there, you could have the ultimate awakening from that point. So I get it, but it's not part of it.
Oh, I've been accused of much worse things, by the way, just so you know. Like I say, when you are in the public, that's just what happens. Every little hand sign, you say, hey, I had this wonderful smoothie. It was just perfect. You do this, and of course, somebody takes a
Or that.
screenshot. Yeah.
The hand behind me. But
Yeah.
that's to that's to always, it's symbolic. It's part of living gold, something that I was shown on the other side, and to always speak truth. So speak truth, because I know what that does to, when you do that, when that symbol's in the back there, and then if I do not do that, then it is something that I carry of pain for myself. I've told you before, the greatest pain that I've ever felt was on the other side. It is more greater than anything that I could ever have felt here. So when I share things, even though it may go against current beliefs, I still have to speak it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what, okay.
I think the sort of the greatest challenge is that we often have to speak truths that people don't want to hear, but just say something just to have someone hear what they want to hear doesn't help anyone. So this is just what this path is, and in the human realm it's not always easy. But thank you for very open and honest answers to those questions and controversies, so to speak. I think it speaks volumes how openly you answered those. um, People have also asked, and you have mentioned, that you have these out of sort of often these out of body experiences where you see future events and then they play out. They might be more personal, but do you have, and this is always what people want to know, do you have visions? There's a lot of talk about a geophysical event in this space, a solar flash. Um, do you have anything on that? Is there anything on the horizon that you've seen? Whether that be helpful for
Um,
us or harmful, I don't know.
I, yeah, so I'll say this, and I'm not saying this to um, bloat myself up or whatever, or I've seen a lot of things in humanity sense of targeting things, but I don't necessarily even like to say it because of where it puts people. It puts people in a state of hope, and that turns into hope harvesting, and then that turns into a disservice of the message that I'm trying to spread. And I'm not saying it's bad to do that. I just don't want to do that. If I feel inclined to, then I'll say it. But I would say go within. I mean, the sun isn't necessarily the sun that they say it is. Is it things happening there? Absolutely. And those things are decoding or uncoding things within the physical body. A lot of the things that are being disclosed now, or they say they're going to do, has already been done.
Mm-hmm. It's a reverse engineering of the reality that's already here.
Yeah. So there will come a point, and I'll leave it at this. There will come a point where this whole place experiences the end of all suffering. And that's a big statement to say, and I know, but it does. This does occur, because for me not to say that would say that evil wins.
You're not
And it,
saying when, though. And if I interpret
I,
everything you've said before, then it depends on each individual soul whether that moment comes sooner or later. Is that correct?
well, I would say it's already in the process of happening now as progresses. But I don't necessarily want to go into that, just because I don't want to leave people in a certain space. That's always been very important for me.
I think you're talking about hopium, this
Hope harvesting, yes.
eternal waiting
Yep.
for an external event that will change my internal state. Is that correct?
Yes, but that event, when you look for it, never happens,
Yeah.
because you're gonna. I'll say this. Oh, I've seen this, and I have seen things like, for instance, I was offered to go to the States, and I had things booked, and I canceled it because I seen a lot of plane crashes even before it was even announced, and I've
Hmm.
seen that months ago, but I never stated it, and I was like, oh, I'm just canceling it, because I was showing myself in a plane in a crashing. And I was like, okay, no, not going there. Just like many
Hmm.
other things that I've seen. But I'm not going to say, oh, this is going to happen, and it's going to change the cells within your body. It's going to upgrade your DNA. It's going to upgrade your third chakra and your fifth chakra, whatever people are saying. Because people that say that are already putting people in a place of not full truth of what could be done now.
That is
Because
exactly why I'm never saying those things either.
yeah, because all of these things, from the time to the upgrade of your cells, they could be done now, and all it takes is a willingness, a will, to do it. And the
You
thing
know,
is that it's already being done too, to to many degrees, you know.
the way that I've always seen this, and was that if a significant number of us live that truth that you talk about, and we radiate that, we can create sort of a feedback loop. I mean, some people call this the 100th monkey effect, but I believe us to be the source of this um cascading series of events, not an external thing changing, because it can only be done through free will. And still, when that feedback loop happens, people still have to accept it into their being and do their part for it. They can't be forced to ascend, right? Nobody can just be forced to ascend.
Well, the funny thing is too, is like I said, when you die, and if you are stuck in a certain place of fear, you won't even ascend then. You'll be temporarily stuck in your own prison of fear. So yeah.
If you had to give people one pointer, one exercise, one practice to transmute their fears or their fear, whatever the fear might be, ultimately it's always the fear of death. What would that be?
Okay. So I've said many different things, but I'm going to say this. Um, may seem slightly off topic, but what I would do is I would ask people to do the rice experiment, test the power of their will and their words. Have one jar of rice with water, the other jar of rice with water again. One, you say I love you, all nice things. The other one, you say I hate you. There's been Amber. She shared something. It's on my YouTube channel, testimony, where she actually did this. And funnily enough, months later, even after that experiment, she's still doing it. I think it's like 6 months later, she's still doing it. And the love jar is still not rotten. I would do that experiment first so people could visually see, not necessarily out of body, because there's a practice to that, and some people may not want to go through that process. But if you just visually could see the power of your words and how powerful you actually are, that should be an immediate self reflection of, if my words are doing this to water, then what else are my words doing to me? And that should give you, an individual, a state of aha or realization that it's them, what they speak could destroy or give life to, including yourself.
It's a beautiful message, beautiful exercise. Thank you. Darius, you've told me before we went on the air that you're working on something, and you said, for the lack of a better term, you used the word institute or school. It will be something in person. Um, it will be part of you teaching people. I know it's still in the works, but can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to do there, and when people might be able to attend that?
Okay, so I usually never make an announcement before it's all said and done, but there's been something I'm working on for quite a long time. It's actually been there for 2 years. Just had no idea of whether if it was worth even pursuing or not. But you could call it an institute, an organization, and I don't know what words to frame it as yet, but it will be a school as such, to teach people what I'm already teaching them now, but in a much greater sense. Because realizing who you are is not just out of bodies, it's more than that. The true abilities that we all have is more than that. Yes, that is the you could say the direct path to things that what everybody is seeking. But there's things that you could do here and now. And I'm not trying to promote this, but it's something that I am working on. It's something that I feel, when the time is right, to put it into an in person, that it will benefit more people in a real sense than just virtual. Um, and so, when that is done, you'll find it on my mission page. So that's basically it. And so,
And
yeah.
and that will be a constant space. Will that be in Australia? Will that be will you travel, or do you already have a concept of that?
I do have a concept, but I don't necessarily want to share that concept. Yeah.
Okay, fair
Um,
enough.
because I would rather, when it's done, that it stands as its own for what it truly is.
So people can find your current mission and everything that will follow in the future on dariusjwright.com. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So as soon as they go there, they just read the mission. That gives them the whole reason, pretty much. So
I love at the end of a conversation, which something tells me it's not our last conversation. I think we know that, but at the end of a conversation, I love to sort of, give our guests the stage. And you've shared many beautiful messages. But for today, for this conversation, what are your parting words with and for our audience? What do you feel is especially now, right now, important for them maybe to hear and know?
I would ask them to ask themselves, so they could see something for themselves as well, with the, like I said, with the rice experiment. But here's another thing that they could do: ask themselves, in a meditation or when they're trying to do the out of body state, show me with no limits, borders, boundaries or limitations. And once you do that, you should be able to see yourself again without all of the limitations placed on you and who you really are.
Beautiful. Darius J Wright, thank you for expansive conversation, for many questions today. You know, usually there's fewer longer questions and longer answers, but we decided that we wanted to answer as many of those questions that were out there. Thank you for that. Thank you for taking the time. And I know you have a YouTube channel. Where can people find that? I know there's testimonials on there, and every now and then you appear on there too.
Not not so much anymore. I just try to keep it about people sharing testimonies, because it's all about, for me, it's about showing them, not me. I mean, I'm doing this to spread a message, but really, it's about, look at how much everybody else is what they're seeing too, because it turns into this. When someone breaks a new world record, they achieve the impossible, then all of a sudden it becomes possible for everybody else. And so that's all I want to see, because once I leave here, the only thing I'm going to be asking myself, did I do enough? Did I actually achieve that? And if I haven't, then that's something that I have to deal with for myself. So that's all I'm trying to do. Just trying to show people, listen, do it. Share it. Spread it. Because then you create a flame. You create a fire that's unstoppable. And to me, that's how you change this place.
Beautiful. Darius, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you for your time and everything. And Inspire Tribe, thank you so much for tuning in. You know, we love you. We appreciate you. And we will be back with you again very, very soon. Today, I'd love to invite you to experience something incredible that completely changed our lives, and I trust it will do the exact same for you. Now, maybe you have visited a place or walked into a house and just felt an incredible energy, just peace, love, harmony, and you keep returning to those places because they feel so good. Such places exist in nature. Maybe you've heard of them, Machu Picchu or Mount Shasta or other places that are considered to be high consciousness fields. It is where the level of consciousness is literally higher than everywhere else, and people go there to heal, to have spiritual experiences, to meditate, to feel more peace and harmony. Now, our friends over at FLFE, Jeffrey Stegman and Clayton Stedman, have developed a spiritual quantum technology that creates such a high consciousness field around your home or on the go with their mobile service. It is a non-invasive, non-AI technology. There are no downloads or devices that you need. The technology works with quantum entanglement. The results are absolutely amazing. My wife Christine and I did their free trial, and we were just blown away by the energy, the better sleep, the better harmony, and especially the EMF mitigation. This absolutely mitigates those effects and creates this field of unconditional love right where you are. I could talk about this all day long, but here's what I think you should do. Click the button down below that says start my free trial and simply experience it for yourself. 15 days, no credit card needed, no strings attached. Trust me, you will love it.